90s.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Australia back again when we were a little bit bored with life, me and my sambo, and 2004. And then we lived in the blue building off Manly Corso. Well, it's not blue anymore.
It's not blue anymore, but yeah, another one.
Yes. We still call it the blue building, but it's not blue anymore.
Okay.
My 2 boys are born in Manly Hospital.
Oh, wonderful. Well, there you go. It's a beautiful.
So this is one top 3 places in the world for me.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore the place.
I still haven't been there. But when did you leave Australia? Was it?
I left. I mean, I've been back pretty much yearly, but I left in 1999, actually. Yeah.
So you're a Northern Beaches chick.
I am, yeah. Can't you tell just by looking at me?
But I think you're Aussie. Okay, but Sydney, we need to recognize that Sydney accent and even Northern Beaches accent is not Aussie accent like the rural accent.
No, it's not. No. And after living in Sweden for 10 years, I had to flatten my accent a lot.
More British.
Yeah, I had to flatten it a lot because people didn't understand what I was saying when I worked.
There is a small joke. When I was at university, one of my best mates was from New Delhi, and one of my other best mates was from Canberra. Canberra, Phil Powers spoke 100 miles an hour, really fluffy, and Bird speaks with his pidgin accent, perfect English. They both turned to me to interpret between 2 fluent English-speaking people who didn't get each other.
Yeah, it can happen. I mean, everyone thinks English is the same the world over, but really, we all speak very different languages, to be honest.
We need to get back into the pod.
Sorry.
Yeah. Small talk. But please tell us more. You had some kind of meeting today speaking about the conference in India, right?
Yeah, so it was a debrief that was sort of held by Chatham House and Observer Research Foundation America and a company called Energy Unlocked. So they've done a lot of work previously looking at climate impact of different types of digital technologies. So they were all sort of reviewing, okay, what is the right way to actually work with the environmental impact and implications of AI. Super interesting bunch of people. But
yeah, I mean, I can imagine. But I think a lot of people don't realize how big or high profile summit this really was.
Yeah,
it was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, because it really passed through my radar. I didn't really.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. I had other topics. But please, can't we just frame it how big this is? Because everybody was there, almost.
And also a lot of, I mean, the framing was a bit about the AI impact, right? And please tell me, what you think. But a lot about that and the sovereignty of AI, and also, of course, a lot about India and their position in the world, right?
Yeah, and how they can use it effectively. And but there was a lot of reports that came out of it that I thought were quite interesting. Like the one on climate impact was very interesting, but also there was a lot on how you can actually use it for human flourishing, which I thought was a nice way to phrase it.
Human flourishing, what does that mean, really?
Yeah, well, that was my first question, right? What is human flourishing and how can I get some?
How can I get some? I love that framing.
But please tell us, what is really human flourishing?
Well, human flourishing, I think, is about how we use AI to make sure that people still have dignity and respect and are able to, have agency and control over their lives.
But I think it's
for the best of humanity in some kind. Or?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess.
But we can say AI for good, but we might lose ourselves what we mean with AI for good if we are not thinking about humans having a better life and flourishing in the new society. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important that we sort of frame some of these conversations in that light as well. I think we focus a lot on efficiency and effectiveness, but actually, even thinking about when we apply these things in the workplace, well, we should make sure that people have nice jobs that they enjoy going to as well. Right?
But because it's also about happiness. We have Mikael Dahlén in Sweden, who is the first professor of happiness.
I love that. That's brilliant.
And happiness and well-being. And of course, if you put that as the AI objective function, it's maybe slightly different. We need to have Mikael Dahlén on exactly this topic.
Absolutely. I think the other thing we need to think about as well, though, is what sort of society do we want? And I think quite often we ask that question a little bit too late, right? What do we want this technology to do for us?
And this is all about unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
So the most stupidity, people are not evil, We are just not thinking it through the implication of a certain trajectory, and we end up in unintended consequences, which is a hugely researched topic on its own, what that means and all that. But this is what we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, perfect. I think that's a perfect segue also into the theme of today's podcast. So with that, very welcome here, Catherine Mulligan, PhD, but also you, I think, are a very prominent leader here, focusing on digital and sustainability in different ways, right? I mean, I think you also were part of founding the world first, if I'm not mistaken, academic blockchain institute, right?
Yep.
And you've been working with the World Economic Forum as a fellow there as well, and with the UN secretary as well, and the high-level panel on digital cooperation, and so many more things. So super knowledgeable, and we're really proud to have you here on the AI After Work podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
But perhaps you can start by just giving a quick background. Who really is Catherine Mulligan?
Well, apart from a Northern Beaches chick, which I think we've already established, if we focus on the technical side of me, basically I started coding when I was about 10 years old, and I never looked back. Literally, that was all I've ever wanted to do.
Cool.
But
you do coding still through
I do, yeah.
Anthropic or through other AI tools? Or?
I like to try and keep my own skills sharp, but I have noticed that my abilities are definitely outstripped by Anthropic now. But it's also a super exciting time. I think we're in the third wave of software engineering.
Right.
Third era. It's fabulous.
Okay, so is it
First,
Sorry.
second,
get stuck in
third?
rabbit hole.
This is already a great rabbit hole. I'm not going to go there then. Sorry.
So I finished my undergrad in Australia. I did it at UNSW. Sorry, not the University of Wollongong.
No. UNSW is it's the best university in Australia.
No, I wouldn't say that. Sorry, don't mean to insult my old university. I think it's probably second.
Because I remember
after
the
Sydney.
rankings. And which one?
Sydney University, I think, would be classically ranked the highest.
Yeah.
But UNSW has done a lot of really cool engineering stuff.
Yeah.
So they're the ones. Did you ever see the solar panel cars?
Yeah.
They're the ones who run that kind of competition.
They run the competition, and Wollongong wanted to be part of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we had our faculties with strong, research in mining and PHP, all that. So
Absolutely,
we had, but UNSW is the big brother, I think. And then, of course, we have the Canberra, Monash, and Victoria, and they would argue that the best one is in Victoria, but we know in Sydney is the front side we don't need to go there.
Melbourne doesn't compete.
No, exactly.
So I finished that. I still was in love with technology, and I set off in search of the most difficult telecommunications problems in the world.
Ooh.
And unsurprisingly, at that particular point, I ended up, through a long circle, I ended up living in Sweden, working for some...
What year was this, approximately?
1999, I came, yeah. That was because a friend of mine had ended up going to Luleå University.
Right.
She'd met a guy, fallen in love. I was in London. She called me and said, "Do you want to come live in Sweden?" I went, "Sure, why not?"
Is there an Ericsson connection already here?
Is there
an Ericsson connection already here?
There is I worked at Ericsson, yeah.
Yeah, but already then now when you sort of made the move there, working on huge telecommunications problems.
I basically went off in search of the biggest, I wanted the most difficult, I was young and stupid, I wanted the most difficult technical problems in the world to work on, and I landed in Ericsson and ended up, really falling in love with telco, actually, for
and
a long
which problem
time.
was the first to fall in love with in Ericsson?
I was on the AXD 301, didn't really fall in love with that too much, so I moved quite quickly onto Bluetooth and those kind of things, and then ended up on the core network doing
core
things.
networks,
Doing IMS.
And IMS is?
The IP multimedia subsystem. So it was taking parts of the core network and putting it into the IP rather than circuit switched.
So shifting to other protocols.
Yeah, exactly. But it was actually Ericsson that I did some volunteer work for Ericsson Response, I think it was called at the time. I don't know if they still even have that. But I got sent to the North Pole. They wanted to get rid of me, honestly. I think that's what it really was.
Cool.
But so I ended up doing. I was technical support for climate change researchers. So they were drilling the ice core for IPCC reports and looking at things like bird migration and tracking bird flu and all this kind of cool stuff. And
using AI already at that time, or
I think they were using mainly, they were sort of starting data analytics really, rather than, we're entering sort of the big data era.
So already early here, we have the convergence of technology and working technology in topics around environment and sustainability. I can see how that already shapes you now.
Yeah, I mean, I literally was standing on the North Pole just after we'd, gone across.
Did?
Yeah, and
So cool.
on the boat, obviously not on the North Pole, but on the boat at the North Pole. And I was sort of like, I sort of ended up thinking like, how can I use my skills for this rather than sort of, 4G, okay, 5G, what's after that? It's just another G, really, isn't it, guys?
I love it.
But yeah, so I ended up going to do a master's for engineering for sustainable development at Cambridge, and then I went on to do a PhD there. I got the end of my master's degree, realised basically the only way to convince people to do sustainable development is tell them how to make money. So since then, basically my research and my work in the world has looked at how we use digital technologies, all sorts of digital technologies to balance economy, environment and society. So a lot of people focus on environment only from the sustainability perspective, but I don't believe we have true sustainability unless we've balanced economy, environment and society.
Sounds really good.
This is awesome.
So that's what I try and do.
What was your PhD topic?
Oh, gosh. I looked at the evolution of the communications industries over several, from, 1875 through to 2010. And that's where we get to the data analytics. That's where I started to get very, very interested in data, because what I did was I basically just collected a whole bunch of data around the industry, as much as I could get, and started to try and analyse how industries were evolving and how things had shifted and changed over time. So I built a model off that, and I didn't publish it. I worked out how to invest off it instead.
I love it.
I did publish a book, but, there's nothing in the book that can help you make money, I don't think. It's very boring. Yeah.
But you started to write books at some point in time.
Yeah.
When was that?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just, I did, yeah. So I wrote the first book, basically, a research monograph, but then I got invited to write some books around telecommunications, so it enabled me really to keep in touch with the technology I genuinely loved, right? So we wrote a couple of books around IoT, a couple of books on
Internet of Things,
the Internet of Things, a book on the IMS and how to actually use that for application development, and then lots of books on the core network.
Was that while working at Ericsson, or was it?
No, all of those books actually were after I left Ericsson, so that's what I was able to keep my connection to the technology, at least.
So these books were intended as for what purpose? To teach, to learn, for dummies, or for who's the target audience for these books?
The target audience was really for engineers who really needed to get to know and understand the standardization that had been done. So, for example, I think it was like R19, R20 of the 3GPP standards. So worked with the guys who actually sit in the standards bodies, and we translated that into the real world. So there's a period of time in the telco industry that is super cool. Sorry, I think it is, at least. Everyone else probably thinks it's very boring. But where the standards have sort of been developed, the technology is ready, but then you have a whole bunch of engineers who really need to be got up to speed very quickly on those standards, right? They need to understand them, but they don't need to go into the depth. They don't need to read the entire specification. They want to know the arc of how it all fits together.
But this is super interesting point in time. Let me see if I understand this right, because I even remember doing consultant work back with Ericsson at some point, a little bit later. And I think this conversation converges a little bit like with the fundamental convergence of telco, IT, OT, IoT, and all of a sudden now we have very standardized protocols, OT within telco, even down to wireline, wireless. And here we have the traditional IT protocols and a completely different set of engineers. And all of a sudden now with IoT, these are converging, and we are still having challenges. Who actually understands from radio to 5G and different specters into data, into
Yeah.
edge and all edge intelligence. Are we? Is it a little bit like we need to have fundamental learning for engineers that don't need to know everything, but we need to be T-shaped enough, need to know enough about the arc in order to work together? Am I hitting it or am I missing it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily related to the books, but I would definitely say we're in a period where we need to, we need to do what I call boundary spanning, right? So, and IT systems and networks are set up fundamentally different to telecommunications networks. And actually, what you find in a lot of businesses is they're still run as separate teams.
Yeah.
So people are trained in IT or they're trained in telco. What you actually need is people who can do both.
Yes.
Right. And that's where I hope we're slowly but surely getting to.
But were the books moving in that trajectory already, or was it still more fundamental in telco space?
The IoT books were definitely moving into that space, and then but the core network ones are really just hardcore telco.
But we're really here to celebrate your new book, right? And congrats on that, by the way. Can you perhaps just give us some kind of introduction? Why did you choose to write this book, and give us some intro to what it's about?
Yeah, mainly I seem to have an addiction to book writing, I think. But the new book was actually as a response to the fact that we see a lot of work around digital sustainability. A lot of people were talking about how to use...
And that's the name of the book as well, right?
That's actually, the name of the book. And so myself and a colleague who works a lot with the UN, they're an advisor for the UN still.
Yeah.
We were sort of talking about, okay, there's a lot of ways to think about digital technologies. There's a lot of books out there on digital transformation, but there's not really much out there that is really helping people understand how to do digital sustainability, or what we have termed really digital resilience. Right. So there seemed to be a space for the book, and I had publishers nagging me, so I pitched this. We decided that this was a good way to do it, but also to put it in the context for senior leaders rather than just people who.
So that's the audience for senior leaders, basically, or to understand this properly.
It's definitely written for business people and people working more in the policy space. So it's written from that context.
But in a nutshell, if you frame the value proposition, the problem for the book. What was the pitch to the publishers? Like, why this book is needed, and how would you sort of encapsulate the core of the book?
Yeah. So we looked basically. The pitch was basically there's a market gap for digital sustainability. It's been done very poorly currently. There's two ways to approach it. One is the very traditional sort of we're using digital technologies for transformation within the company, and there's a lot of good things to do in that space. But there's also another argument that could be made around transforming the way that companies and organizations are actually structured. And I think that's a broader conversation that needs to be driven also within AI. So I think we're at a point in time where we're seeing the 20th century methods of organization and structure that we have are currently really not working very well anymore. We're starting to see some of these fail. And so we need 21st century solutions to 21st century problems.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you said something about, what was it? You need to move beyond digital for digital's sake, so to speak.
Yeah.
What do you mean with that?
Well, I think, there's a lot of us out there who are technology geeks, really, right? I love technology, so my first answer is, how do I fix this with some digital? But I think we need to also it is about stepping back and saying, what is the sort of society we want? What is the sort of economy we want? And what is the sort of world we want to create and leave behind? And I think currently what we're doing is very much focusing on, it's almost too narrow. People are thinking, I'm going to solve this problem by using, technology. I'm going to solve for the AI water consumption by doing this small measure. And then we get back to your unintended consequences. Okay, but that small measure fixes one problem, but then there's a whole other part of the system that suddenly flies away.
Blows up.
Exactly, that people have got to then run after.
And I guess you can replace digital with AI here and say you shouldn't simply use AI for the sake of AI, right?
Yeah, but I think a lot of people are starting to realize that, right? For example, the MIT report that we are talking about before, the 95% are.
But can we go back a little bit to the book? Because I'm quite curious. I think this is a brilliant topic. I think the value proposition is brilliant. I think the way that we need to reform organizations is actually where the bottleneck is.
Yep.
You know, we can take this conversation all the way down into the AI strategy in Sweden last week, where basically we're talking about all this stuff, but there's a pink elephant in the room sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you go about tackling, because I think when you're now using resilience as a label, but what you're really talking about, what is the bottlenecks or pitfalls, or why is the old organization not fit for the new? Could you elaborate on how you went about in the book to unpack that a little bit? Because I think it's highly interesting.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting sort of, maybe not specifically unpacking that directly just yet, but for example, there's lots of really interesting approaches that we have done sort of work on in the real world and also through research, which is trying to understand what resilience would actually mean in the context of delivering it for society or delivering it for a business. One example that I've used a lot is some work we did in India and UK. So we did a compare and contrast, and this is where I got very excited. We did a project that was looking at how you create economies of scale and scope using digital technologies they were rural, companies at the time, but frankly, you could use it anywhere. It doesn't need to be rural. And what's really exciting was we did a 4-year project, paid a huge amount of money by the British government to do it. It was wonderful. But what we came to understand was that by using different types of organizational methods, different types of organizational structures, so we used a hub and spoke model to create a company in India. The Indian research team did that. You're able to create different types of economies of scale and scope and actually help people step up the value chain in a different way. But what was really exciting was actually exactly the same process worked in the United Kingdom as well. So very different nations, very different economies, and very different organizational structures normally that are used by government and also by companies in those areas. But the archetype worked in both nations. And that means that there's something fundamental there that enables us to work slightly differently and think differently.
And perhaps you can just elaborate, what is really the hub and spoke model, and how does it relate to economies of scale, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So to give a very specific example, the project in India looked at non-edible almond oil. That sounds very esoteric maybe, but I guarantee every single person in this room has used non-edible almond oil several times today. It's in literally every soap in the world.
Oh, really?
I hope you've used it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think I showered today. Yeah.
But this is some of these raw material ingredients that we don't think about, that goes into a lot of different products, as an example, right?
Exactly. So the non-edible almonds are gathered from the foothills of the Himalayas, actually. It's 5 rupees a kilo was what they were paid at the time. Might get paid more at the moment. But on the global market, like 100 milliliters is about $1,500 right? So there's a massive disparity there. So, but through connecting multiple villages across a region and asking them to work together, having a hub model which enabled them to process the non-edible almond oil.
They can get in on the action.
They can get on the action, but they can also step up the value chain, right? Because there was also some mechanical engineering to try and fix.
So to actually leave more of the value to the first part of the value chain.
Exactly. And that company is still running today. So that's 15 years later, which is very unusual for academic research. So, kudos to the people who put that together. And it still functions, but it also is extremely resilient. Because if one of the villages doesn't have enough almonds, they can still contribute into the supply chain because they can coordinate across multiple different hubs.
Oh, interesting.
So that's one example.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And you mentioned before that the sustainability is more about the climate impact, etc. It's really about the economy as well. So if you were to give some highlights from the book, what is really digital sustainability? And please, if you could elaborate on what that really means.
What is it really? Well, okay. What is digital sustainability?
I'm going together. The whole
I was going to say
2 sentences.
2 sentences. So, digital sustainability is actually 2 things. It's making sure that the use of digital technologies is environmentally, socially, and economically viable. But it's also ensuring that the impacts of digital technology are also equally balanced, if that makes sense. So, are we? Another good example might be blockchain, if anyone has looked at those things, right? So
some people have heard about that.
So we did a lot of work. So I did a report with the WEF where we looked at actually the environmental impact of blockchain. And we were trying to say, actually, what you need to do is have sensible methods where you can measure economic, social, and environmental impact. So then you can make the correct decision about where to use blockchain and for what purpose.
Was it looking at the mining process impact, or what did you do with the blockchain?
Well, we looked at everything from extraction of silicon all the way up to the use. So it's an entire value chain approach to that, which is what a lot of the techniques, for example, have been done for concrete. So concrete use is, it's one of the most environmentally damaging sort of.
I didn't know
that.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of work has been done to look at how you reduce the environmental impact of concrete, but a lot of measurement techniques have been developed as a response. So we tried to pick up a lot of those and to see if those could be applicable into digital technologies. They can be. The issue is that I think that politically it's a very difficult discussion for people to take. So what I noticed was, if you look at who funded the work for concrete sort of CO2 reduction and environmental impact reduction, that was funded by Microsoft to a large extent. But I don't think you'd get them to talk so much about the environmental reduction of digital technologies. They will, however, talk about using AI to measure and reduce environmental impact of the energy system, for example.
Exactly. We use our techniques and models and we help for others.
Exactly.
If I'm a little bit brutal.
Yeah. And I think there's, when you look across the spectrum, if you look 20 years ago, we were having exactly the same discussions about the telecommunications networks. How do we measure the actual environmental impact of, and a lot of great work was done as a result of that at that time as well. So this is something that comes up periodically. It's with every wave of technology, someone says, what about the environmental impact? And then, my big concern is that we forget all the work we've done previously.
Right.
But in the book now, because I haven't read it, so I don't. So I just want to make that clear. So that's why I'm asking stupid questions. So for me, when you are talking about now sustainability and then you're moving into resilience, there are so many rabbit holes here in relation to, on a macroeconomic point of view, and how do we measure it, and how do we benchmark, and how do we understand that this is a problem, to actually creating fundamental resilience and distributed agency and all the fundamentals that becomes the micro patterns that actually says something about how we organize to be future-proof for AI even, yeah? So how much did you spend on sort of the understanding sustainability of digital, on a macro geopolitical level, and how much were you able to sort of pinpoint it down to something that is sort of approachable for the single enterprise or stuff like this?
We spent most of our time looking at how you would do it in a single enterprise. Macro is great. It's exciting to talk about, to be honest. And
it gives the perspective of scope if we do this right or wrong.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah.
But to fix it, you need to go down.
Yes, you need to work on an individual level. You can't, not on an enterprise level or a government level, or even potentially at a national level. And one of the key issues that I think is interesting about resilience as well is it broadens the discussion to actually what happens when things fall over, like digital systems fall over. Then you get into a whole other rabbit hole. How many rabbit holes do you want to go down?
No, we love rabbit holes, and we had a joke that word is even. We had someone do an AI analysis of the of the whole season, and rabbit hole was one of the favorite words. So we love rabbit holes. So which one? But okay. So let's. Can you highlight what are 3 or 4 major rabbit holes, and then we can pick or choose to go into a couple of them or one of them.
Sure. Major rabbit hole would be, okay, so what does it mean to be resilient? So how do we use some of the theories that we worked with, to create community, what I call community-based resilience? I think everyone is looking at societal resilience, or, they're looking at it from a defense perspective or a very large-scale sort of network perspective, and they take very certain views on that. So that's one rabbit hole. The other rabbit hole is how do we go about actually measuring that on a enterprise level? So how do we measure for sustainability? And then the other one,
KPIs and metrics and benchmark our performance on resilience. How would
I mean, you could do that, but I would actually suggest that KPIs are too slow, right? They're a lag indicator.
Okay, so
the question,
even my language was wrong then. We need to evaluate and measure. We need to find ways to understand and monitor. Or what do you mean?
Yeah, so it's a KPI is a lag indicator, right? You measure it at the end. What I mean is we need lead indicators.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I was
very simple.
I was using terminology nonchalantly. I fully understand.
Sorry.
You need leading indicators. A KPI is not the leading indicator in your vocabulary.
In my vocabulary, No. Yeah. So,
Great.
yeah. So, how do we go about building those? And there's lots of different things you need to think about on that. So that was how many rabbit holes?
That's 2 now.
That was 2. Okay.
So resilience, measuring and understanding how to find the leading indicators to work with.
Yep. And then I guess the third one would be how do you engage your leadership to ensure that you can actually do this? How do you get people on board internally in the company? Or fourth rabbit hole, policy.
But what is an organization?
Choose the rabbit hole.
Is an organizational pattern for resilience and adaptability a major topic? Because if we organize division of labor and we are not sort of having agency out in the spokes, so to speak,
Yep.
we build something that is very efficient when everything is happy,
Yep.
but it has no self-organizing, self-fixing property because it's not cross-functional enough. So the pattern around resilience becomes a core DNA pattern of organization.
Absolutely.
That must be a rabbit hole in itself.
Yeah, and one of the things we've looked at quite a lot is what we call the dynamic strategic network, which is just fancy language to say that you're using modular and recomposable organizational structures. And actually, that's one of the most exciting rabbit holes for me, actually, is that digital technologies enable us to reorganize.
Yep.
They allow us to do things faster and faster and more efficiently if you want to, but they also allow us to reorganize how we structure a company, and even more broadly, how we structure an economy.
And this is one of them AI after work discussions I want to have with you, because this is right what I am super passionate about, understanding those patterns.
It's there's lots of different archetypes that can emerge, right, which are super interesting. So well, okay.
We get there if we want to.
We'll get there. Or we can just continue diving.
Yeah, but perhaps
Let's draw it.
If you just want to make it a bit more concrete as well, and thinking more about, if we take leading indicators, for example, what do you think some examples of that could be?
Great question.
Well, okay, so that's a very generic question, but if we're looking at a company, let's say you have a company that is, I don't know, choose an industry.
I'm going to take Ericsson,
Telco. Let's go with telco. Or let's go with finance, banking, or let's go with
Let's go with finance, actually. Yeah. So, there's a lot of work that's been done in sustainability of finance, right? So if you are looking at, if you're looking at how you could think about, do we want to do it with AI or do we want to do it just in general?
General to start with, I think AI would be
I love when you do step 1 and then you AI. Let's do that.
Let's AI afterwards. Okay. So if you look at sustainability financing, you could build some very interesting models. There's a lot of work done on this in the blockchain era as well, but they didn't quite have good enough AI at the time. You can look at resource depletion in different parts of the world. Let's say it's pollution going into a water body. You can monitor that and automatically sort of impose fines. Preferably, you'd automatically stop people polluting, but that's a little bit more difficult. So you can actually connect all of that into some of the financing mechanisms. And if you look at what some of the larger banks are doing, some very, very large banks are already working on these kind of structures. The other one, of course, is then looking at how you can link that to the insurance markets. So there's some very interesting work going on in that space.
But still, if we just make it super concrete, because I think you lost me a bit here.
Okay.
And if we just continue on the leading indicators and the finance business, and then perhaps for large banks, and they have these kind of indicators, but could you give some kind of concrete use case here? Would it be that leading banks should know what to invest in that way, have these kind of leading indicators that is a bit more sustainable, or what do you mean?
Yeah, so I'm trying not to name the bank that we worked with. So, for example, banks make a lot of loans, and a lot of those loans would then be linked to certain types of sustainability funding, and at the time it was ESG reporting, right? Okay. So that needed to be measured effectively. A lot of the work that needed to be done was to ensure that they were measuring in advance to make sure it was
measuring what in advance.
Well, okay, so water. Let's say pollution. Let's say chemicals being expelled into a water body, a river, basically, from a particular type of processing plant. So if that gets to you can't wait until the end of the year to measure that, because that's going to be disastrous for the ESG reporting. But if you can monitor that on an ongoing basis, you can then work out how to either stop it, hopefully, that's what they do, or they will get auditing from the companies for their ESG reporting.
And the benefits here is really for the bank to ensure that they give loans or invest in things that are sustainable, or what
it is useful here? For the bank to make sure that they are compliant with the ESG reporting guidelines, which have been dramatically reduced. So that's probably already been shut down.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, but you mentioned AI somehow. Can you just elaborate? What do you mean with using AI for these kind of purposes?
Oh, that was mainly just a joke.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I mean, yes, you can, of course, imagine a scenario where you have different types of dashboards which are monitoring those things for you on a daily basis, right?
But if we just move in as, in AI, as a field in general, because, AI can be used for very good purposes to improve sustainability and minimize the climate impact in many ways, but on the other side, it can also be really damaging, and the energy consumption we're seeing now with the biggest data centers is insane, right? What do you think about this? How can we find a digital sustainable solution when it comes to AI?
So I think that we need to be a little bit careful when we say things are disastrous. Do you mean disastrous in terms of?
Well, the biggest kind of data centers we have these days, like Elon Musk's Colossus 2, they basically consume more than a gigawatt of power, and it's basically the energy consumption of like New York City or something, or bigger. I mean, it's an insane amount of power that they require, and of course that's bad from a potentially an environmental point of view. But on the other side, the models that they produce can be really beneficial for, improving our energy efficiency and even improving the data centers themselves, or finding ways to use it for science and in other ways, improve the environmental impact in different ways. So I'm just thinking here, given that a digital technique like AI can be double-sworded in some way, used for good and bad. How should we model this? How should we come up with a digital sustainable solution when it comes to a technique like AI?
Yeah, and so I think this is where it's quite interesting to think again about the balance, right? You need to understand how to measure things effectively between economy, environment, society. I'm very basic. Other people go for the SDGs, but I'm a Northern Beaches girl. I'm very basic.
So you're trying to, I mean, like you can have 17 goals, or you can try to have 3 fundamental dimensions. It's a little bit what you're saying now, to get it clearer.
Yeah, and maybe I'm so in traditional sort of, it was it's triple bottom line reporting. It was originally called, right? So environmental, social, and economic. It was an attempt to include these things in the accounting infrastructures of companies. It was a HBR article in 1994, and the guys will come back. The guy's name will come back to me,
but this is the origin of ESG as an idea almost.
Yeah, it's probably it is the origin. So I think the SDGs for me are a little bit too fluffy. They're a little bit too high level, and a little bit too difficult to measure.
Could we summarize? This is the UN goals in different categories.
Development goals, right?
Sustainable development goals, and it's like 17 or 15 of them around a wheel of different areas, right?
Yeah, there's 17.
17 in 5, 6 clusters? I can't remember.
I know there's 17.
But it's too much. You get confused.
And each of the 17 are, having separate goals as well. I think it's like 160.
Yeah, but to make that into a practical leading indicator model is quite hard.
It's also completely, I'm being quite dramatic now, but it's completely useless for a company because the SDGs are measured on a national level. They're for the United Nations, right?
It's a macro approach when you need a micro approach.
Exactly. So that's why when I go back to talking about organizations, I always go back to the triple bottom line. So how are we working to understand how you're balancing environment, economy, and society? There are models to do this. There are economic models that would help you to measure these things. So, for example, we as organizations, companies, enterprises, they've all focused on the economic aspect of measurement for a very long time. But what you're talking about is actually, how do you actually make the decision that the investment of X amount of energy or money is worth the social output we're getting?
Yeah.
That's a completely fundamentally different question. And that's why, I developed what I called a performance in use model. This was in 2014, which was designed to allow you as an organization to measure and be able to compare and contrast environment, economy, and society side by side and make a balanced judgment. Okay. And most people get very scared when they see the outcomes from that.
Yeah, and can I...
Why is that?
Because if you take a truly, primary, tertiary, secondary and tertiary, first, second and third order effect measurement on what we do when we build digital.
Not good.
It's not brilliant. It's not impossible to do it correctly, but it is more complicated, it's harder, and it requires a greater depth of thought than, frankly, most companies have time for. So I'm not surprised they go back. But at the end of the day, however, if you think about Colossus 2, is that really a company decision, or is that a societal decision? And I think one of the questions that AI brings up for me is who gets the right to make these decisions about our resources and how they're allocated in society.
But we have this kind of huge AI investments, especially in infrastructure now. We have the big Stargate investments.
I don't want to. Can we just lock down this topic? Sorry, Anders. I want to stay here before we move on.
Okay.
Because I want to understand if I understand what you are talking about here, and I want to use another lingo. I think this is a very deep. What did Cassie say now? Moment, right? I think you're talking about. I use my words to say the same thing. Aren't we talking about we need to find other ways to define value than pure financial metrics?
Yep.
So when we look at how companies are run and everything boils down to shareholder value, it fundamentally drives unintended consequences. And now what we're doing with triple accounting is to broaden the view of value. And now comes the real kicker when we go to Colossus, where he is caring about shareholder value.
I'm not sure he's caring about that, but yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm just going with the logic that a company is doing something that looks good from a shareholder value, but is shit on the societal value or energy value. But we are only measured on one piece. And now the triple accounting is about how do we bring in measurements that basically makes us do less things with unintended consequences. I'm trying to, with a layman's term, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I would say that's a very good way to look at it. And actually, the organizations that have done best with these aren't the ones who got it perfectly balanced, but they instead used it to surface some of the questions, some of the unintended consequences, and then use that to sort of engage with maybe communities that might be affected or other people in different ways, or even sort of thinking about the impact on their employees.
Yeah, so before, back to Anders, but you said something, you dropped a provocative sentence. Let's go back to that one and unpack what that one, because I think it's a profound question mark there. So should we have, how did you say it, Elon Musk or Colossus has this, but we are ending up in a position where this has, what one company is doing has impact in other spaces like society. Could you come back to your question? Because you said it and then that was heavy. And unpack that 1 second just.
Yeah, so I think every company, actually every human, all of us, as we walk through the world, we make decisions about things and we have impact sort of on other people. So back to Ericsson. Ericsson will make decisions that has impact on society, environment, economy. What I'm concerned about with AI and some of the hyperscalers, I would say, is there is an outsized impact now from their decisions on economy or society, right? And so the question then, if you look at them, they're now as big as the Seven Sisters were in the 70s, right? If we go back to the oil era, if we want to compare them to the oil era, in terms of monopoly. So the question is then, how do we actually make these decisions effectively?
So how can it be okay that 4 or 5 companies making decisions that is rational for them, but unrational for 2 billion people in the world? And how the hell do we navigate this space in terms of policy making and understanding? Can they do, how far can they take it without?
Well, this is where this is.
Is that what this is the core problem, right?
Yeah. So one of the things I get quite concerned about is, I think we're entering an era where corporations are starting to act as government, rather than as just corporations, right? And what we currently have is what I call magma, which is the 7 large companies, or the largest sort of AI data-driven companies, really, making decisions on behalf of the entire planet. So before, for example, let's say a very large company that was housed in the United Kingdom, they would have to take a discussion with the British government, right? They don't actually have to do that anymore. Sorry, apologies. That's me, sorry.
That was me before I turned mine on.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Now, when these kind of companies are getting so huge, I mean, the impact that they have and the economy they have is bigger than most companies, or countries in many cases. And it's really big. But then, if we just go back, I mean, of course they have to. I mean, if we live in a capitalist society, then of course they have to maximize the economical revenue.
But do we only live in a capitalist society anymore? I posit so that we're moving into a new type of economic structure.
Yeah. Oh, really? I think so too.
Yeah, I think.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah, I think we're moving into an economy that's fundamentally founded on data. And data, think about it, right? So what we've had is companies chasing capital for years, many, so they could have freedom of movement, shall we say, to build their products, do what they want to do. What happened, this might be a little bit too esoteric, but
we love it. We love it. Let's go.
I always say it started in 2004. This new type of economic structure emerged in 2004, but where companies started actively hunting data, because data is what has given them control and power.
But also capital, right?
Has it given them capital?
I think so.
Sorry.
No, but it's an interesting thing because we still need capital to run our companies.
Yep.
But if we look at the magma, the common denominator, what they are doing differently on a completely different scale than anyone else is chasing data. Everybody's chasing capital, but what are they chasing that no one else is chasing? Data.
They're expending huge amounts of capital to get more data.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not for data in itself necessarily, is it really? Is that the end goal? Or is it a means to some other
It's a
end?
means. It's a means to power.
But what is money? What is money?
Yeah.
It's a means to power. Sorry. No.
It's all power.
No, I think it's all about power and control, really. So without data, they would never have been able to build the models. So you're correct, right?
Yeah.
I think they
And
see
the
it.
model in its turn give power, which give money.
Yeah, but money gives you resources, gives you control over output, right? So it depends how you want to
It's a
view it.
chicken and a hen
No,
problem, perhaps?
I don't think capitalism is going to go away. I think we're seeing the emergence of maybe it's a new type of capitalism. We could say that, right?
But are we talking about the power flywheel? We're talking about a power flywheel. So when Putin says who's going to have geopolitical power is about AI, when we were talking about Google and chasing data, it's all things to push around the flywheel where we have more and more power and influence, I would argue, in order to then better shape money and in order to, isn't it a power flywheel?
I think it's a little bit more than power, actually, because what I find super interesting about AI, in particular in the era we're living through right now, is we're seeing, before you would have a human work a machine or a human work a laptop, I would do my coding and, whatever it is, and someone else would make some money off it, I'd get a salary. What we're actually seeing is the embodiment or the encoding of my capability, capacity and skills through AI. It's been sort of captured through data and AI, maybe algorithms is a better way to say it. And that is, I think, what is giving the power flywheel, right? You're sort of taking or capturing human capabilities and putting them into the digital era, digital world or digital sphere. You're all trapped in your laptop now. And you didn't know it, Anders, but you are.
Of course I am. Been for
because then I understand what Anders is saying also. We're saying they're all chasing data, but that is simplifying the flywheel discussion because from data, what they're really capturing is human ingenuity and human intelligence.
Yeah.
And then they're putting yours human intelligence and ingenuity on a bottle that they then makes them more intelligent. More intelligence then leads them to do something more productive and effective, leading to power. So there's this...
And more money.
Yes.
So it's a consequence chain. This is the flywheel effect. It's a consequence chain. So you can simply say, they're all chasing data. But they're chasing data in order to get to there, in order to get to there, in order to get to there, to power, and then back again.
Yeah,
I
guess maybe the better way to say it is I completely agree with you that they're chasing data in order to have the same level of control that money used to give them.
Yes,
Yeah.
that could be. So, there's a lot of useless data around there. So in some way, it's really the insights or the knowledge that you are seeking. Or if you use the term intelligence here, but intelligence, if you speak in intelligence community, it means basically knowledge. If you use it in AI sphere, it means the ability to acquire knowledge. But still, I think the ability to have information in some way that is useful is something that a lot of companies are chasing, and even perhaps more so than for capital in some sense.
But sorry, you can go first, but I was trying to connect it back to when we talk about the AGI race.
Yeah.
So are we chasing data or are we chasing intelligence?
Yeah.
So, but you take your first.
Well, I was going to ask actually, because I think what's really interesting is who's actually winning as a result of the AI race? Like how many companies do we know that are genuinely able to make as much money out of AI as possible? Is it only the hyperscalers that are? Well, they're not even making money; they're losing money.
No, I think it's the industry. I think it's the hyperscalers and the vendors and architecture and infrastructure that is making the money, and not the other way around. Us buying it yet.
I mean, one of the things I saw recently, actually, that was really super interesting and just sort of made me sit up was News Corp, massive. Speaking of Australians,
Murdoch.
yeah, exactly. They've recently signed a $150 million sort of contract with, I think it's OpenAI and Meta. And basically they now consider themselves, this is a massive, very powerful company. They're basically saying they're input to AI. They actually went out and said that publicly. I think there's
They make
something...
more money that way than newspaper subscribers.
Exactly. So that's a fascinating shift for me, because that's mega industry saying we're now just input to the AI machine.
The whole value chain shifts completely off its head.
But
Exactly.
for one thing we're saying is as well that, the power is concentrating more and more. And we can see that the big hyperscalers and the biggest and the most valuable companies in the world, if you look at the top 10 list, is basically all data-driven companies, I would say.
Yeah.
Except one, perhaps, with Warren Buffett's company. But otherwise, that they are. And it seems like that kind of gap and that kind of difference and concentration on power and money is increasing a lot. Would you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, but is that as a result of AI or data? I'm not sure. I think it's also, we've seen these kind of periods before in the world over several thousand years, actually.
But for the recent change, do you think that's because of AI something? I mean, NVIDIA, why they make so much money? Microsoft's in the top. Why did they make money? Apple, perhaps Apple is an exception here.
Well, most of those companies have made money because of data.
Because of data, yeah. I think so too.
Yeah, so that's why, instinctively, I think there is a new type of economic structure emerging alongside capitalism, or maybe tightly coupled even to capitalism.
Yeah. But so the capitalist model is evolving with money is money, but now we have another type of financial instrument, or we have another data in itself becomes... Is it money? What is it, right? It's another means to this.
Yeah, and if you think about money, it's evolved a lot over 5,000 years, right? Yeah. So I think that's the origins of money. But also, we've seen a lot of changes around that.
But can we connect this back now to me?
Sorry.
But I was going to go down. Are we chasing data or intelligence? And why, what are we really chasing? And then we even had some conversations here. Well, we're not even... people are arguing, are we chasing intelligence or are we chasing something else than intelligence as well? Can we try to elaborate a little bit about that? Because we say we're chasing data. Mm-hmm. What about the AGI race? How does that connect to this conversation then?
So I think, I think...
If I may give you an introduction to that topic.
Yeah.
And the weird thing here, I think, with AGI specifically, is that we're seeing insane investments in recent single year. And starting with the Stargate for $500 billion made by OpenAI and SoftBank and Oracle. And then we saw the big 200 billion euros from Europe in also doing a big AI, InvestAI as it was called. And then, of course, we have Elon investing insane amount of money, and Meta investing in insane amount of money, and Google doing the same. I mean, every one of these is investing insane amount of money. And if you just take OpenAI, they just have a revenue about like $20 billion, just 20 billion, but still, they are investing $1.4 trillion in AI infrastructure.
Yeah. That's what I mean. They're spending a huge amount of capital to get data.
But is it data or is it something else?
Or is it something else?
Data, yes, but now we are talking about something else. What are we
model,
It's the model. What is it? What is it really we're investing in?
But if we were to just elaborate on that, if we believe AGI will happen, if you just make an hypothesis saying that they are actually doing this because the one that gets there first, it's some kind of winner take it all scenario, meaning the one that actually will have AGI will be able to build even more powerful solutions and companies. So then we'll have this kind of self-recursive improvement kind of scenario where it will be a fast takeoff, potentially, as some people call it, right? And could that be a reason that they are investing this kind of absurd amount of money? I mean, people have been laughing about OpenAI's kind of investments here, but if you think in this way, and they actually do end up first in the AGI race, it does actually make some sense, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't laugh at their investments. I think it's quite a serious investment, and I don't 100% agree with the theory, but I do in sort of principle that if we look at what some of the things that have been achieved with AI around gene, some of the medical advances, some of the stuff around identifying genes has been done, super fast, and the insights it's giving into some of the medical sort of systems that we've seen, or it's creating new proteins, it's creating new things that are viable and usable. I think there could be something there. I think also that, well, for me, the thing that I really like about AI and the race for AGI is it actually shows us humans how stupid we actually are.
Yes, that's
and how we think we know everything, and that opens a set of it's opening possibilities. Just having new proteins put forward that actually make sense, and it challenges what intelligence is.
But there is a narrative here, right about here, that basically emphasizes why this is such a great idea to invest this insane amount of money. Because on the one hand side, you have the utopian goal. If you've completely unlocked the productivity frontier and you sit on that golden egg, it's kind of a no-brainer that will lead to power.
Yeah.
But throughout the whole race, from here to now, who influences the narrative and what truth is, what the data is built on, what the model is built on, what's the evaluation criteria, means that if the end question is a power flywheel, and here we have a power flywheel where we reach a completely different type of productivity frontier, actually all the way through here, where you are building a society with your values, you are, so to speak, winning the geopolitical war without taking up arms. So there is a logic that you are actually influencing the model and therefore influencing the narrative all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we're focusing a little bit too much even on the American companies here. I mean, there's a whole super cool set of stuff coming out of China too that is just mind-blowing, right? Yeah. Like the physical AI stuff that they're doing is so...
Unitary is amazing.
I wonder what...
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. So it's, there's a lot of really... So yeah, they're investing huge amounts of money, but I also think, I know there's a lot of worry about, this is going to transform how we work. This is going to, cause all sorts of problems. And yes, it is causing problems, and it is demanding that we think about what democracy is and how it's going to work in the 21st century. Yeah. But we're also on the cusp of some of the most exciting discoveries, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
It's just so cool to be alive.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry.
Yes.
It's time for AI News. Brought to you by AIAW Podcast.
Yes, so let's have let's see if we can keep it small, news section. We usually do that in the middle of the podcast to just have a small break and then speak about some of the most exciting news that we all heard about recently. So let's go around the table. Anyone, do you have anything after that you'd like to bring up? Any news that you heard about that you'd like to share?
Well, mainly the one about, I've already brought it up, it was the News Corp major. That was the major one for me this week.
Could you just paint the picture? Well, that came out now, and we're talking about one of the biggest news media companies in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's Australian based still, right? Or as Singapore?
I don't think it's based in, I don't know where it's
But we used to know the family, the Murdoch family owning this stuff, but it's massive, right? And I guess they own a lot of different news outlets around the world. Mm-hmm. And now into the story, could you just take it one step further, what you said before? Because it's a big news.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was just astonishing to see News Corp say that. I mean, effectively, they're saying that they're now part of an AI supply chain. So they've basically signed a deal where they allow Meta and OpenAI to scrape all of their news sites and take that data in to continue to train the models. I think that for me is really interesting, for people who are working in journalism. I think it sort of raises quite a few questions about what you're going to do with your career or what you should be thinking about doing. But, The Guardian also signed a very similar deal, I think it was last year, to allow OpenAI to scrape its websites.
New York Times as well. You remember at the beginning they were actually suing these LLM models left, right, and center until they got paid.
Yeah.
Then it was okay.
What I think is why this is shocking or very, very interesting is that before we have said, we will cooperate with them, we will allow you to coexist with us, which is sort of, we are still the top dog, we are media, we know the shit, blah, blah, blah. Here, the way they are expressing the same thing is fundamentally rewriting the value chain and where you sit in the value chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has not been done before.
But aren't they really digging their own grave here? I mean, if they actually are feeding the AI, why do we need journalists in the future?
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. And as someone who writes books,
Yeah, exactly.
why bother? I can just sit and talk into the AI, maybe.
I need to comment on this. Like, you really think that there will not be any place for a human actually objectivism and journalism?
No. I think this is completely viable.
Will AI go to Gaza and report from there? Or maybe what is happening in the world? Or be a war journalist? Or basically look at the cookbooks by a company or crooked things? Will AI do that?
No, but
No.
You don't think so?
No, absolutely.
So I don't think...
Maybe a cyborg will, but I don't know. That is far away.
I have something on my tongue here. I think what they are trying to understand is that the old financial model, how that we need journalism is super important. That we need people writing real pieces, and that is then used to train AI is super important. But what is happening is that the fundamental old financial model, monetary exchange, value exchange between a consumer and a news outlet is fundamentally shifting here. So basically, we get to the point where actually we are conversation with our chatbot and we are shopping with our chatbot. We are doing everything here. So we don't have the end consumer relationship anymore. Mm-hmm. So now then News Corp needs to say, okay, we can't win and take that spot in the value chain. So therefore, but we are important, but we're going to make more money by paying Meta to do this shit and then the consumers doing this shit. So instead of us, it's like instead of going to the delegate of a conference to pay for the conference, we're going to the vendors who wants to sponsor the, bad idea.
It's even worse.
That's a great business model.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you know what I mean, right?
What is the USP of humans in journalism in the future? I mean,
Yeah.
they certainly have lost the race when it comes to gathering data and trying to summarize that. There is no way a human can even compete today to the AI function out there. Then you can think about, we have some kind of angle, some kind of bias that is positive here, saying we want to frame the news in a certain way. And then, you can think, who can do that the best then? Could it be the people that are actually prompting the AI then to report the news in a certain way? So AI moves up the value chain here, not really gathering the data, not summarizing it, not writing the articles, but really providing, these are the framing, the bias that I want the news to have. Could that be the human angle then, or what should it really be?
I think it's quite similar question for coding, isn't it? It's
it is
what is
very
the
much
road?
true.
Yeah, what is the role?
Exactly the same.
You don't want someone sitting there writing code anymore. You want someone who's guiding a system, guiding the system architecture.
But then it could potentially be one single person that drives all of News Corp, right?
Yep, and maybe that's what they're ultimately thinking about.
Yeah.
There is a question, though, I think that is very valuable that I think you were sort of mentioning, which is around this idea of the fifth estate.
So what the
fifth estate? So journalism is the fifth estate of government. So how do we create a little bit sort of to your comments? How do we ensure that we have
Scrutiny?
Because the thing about News Corp giving all of their information to AI is what happens to those truly investigative journalists. So is it that you have someone who is who becomes truly investigative, and they're all doing sort of things like Watergate or whatever, and you leave AI to do the average everyday stuff.
Maybe because true journalism died when we started to report and when you started to repost what other else is doing.
Social media.
Yeah.
Social media ping-ponging is not journalism. So the true investigative journalism, the fifth estate, the scrutiny of our leaders is what keeps and that is what true journalism is all about. And then maybe that is the core objective function of journalism, and then you can reimagine something completely different. I think the scrutiny dimension is the fundamentals of journalism.
Yeah.
Still.
I would hope so, at least.
But this cannot
it's
be
not my area of
automated.
expertise, but
I'm used seeing stuff that, you know what, is that are you use ping-ponging stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it's clear. I mean, humans, as long as they do have a place in the chain, which I think they will for quite some time, but they're moving up the stack, so to speak. So just as a truck driving company may not have humans driving the cars or the trucks, they will still, tell the trucks what to do. And just as coding, as you said, we of course don't have humans writing the lines of programming anymore, but you still tell it what to write and how to write it. And the same for journalism. So I think that seems like a clear way forward. But then the question is, when will humans be left out? It could potentially be a point where AI does that better as well.
But great first question and quite topic.
Sorry.
Rabbit hole.
No, but it's a great, interesting news piece. Thank you.
Yeah. Eric, do you have
No,
some more?
I stole the show with the whole AI strategy discussion
Right.
last week, so I'll go last this time.
I mean, perhaps we can just speak a bit about the weird thing happening with Anthropic and the war against Department of War.
Oh, yes.
That they had, and it's really weird, and it's happening like Friday, Saturday last week, and it's been exploding ever since. But of course, then Anthropic and Claude is awesome for coding, and it's actually what the Department of War and Pentagon has been using for a long time. They were the first one to really supply the Pentagon with AI, and they've been using it for a lot of purposes. They used it in Venezuela when they did the attack there. They used it now in Iran as well. And now suddenly, Dario Amade is saying, we are not going to allow you to do for two things. You can use it for whatever you want and for lawful purposes, but not for mass surveillance, nor for autonomous weapons. Then, what was it? Trump went out and said he tweeted some, extreme things, of course, or on Social Truth, I think he said something about the horrible woke company of Anthropic. We're going to completely remove all uses of you, and you're going to be a supply chain risk. And something that's been usually used only for like Russian companies like Kaspersky and also Huawei and companies like that. And suddenly domestic companies like Anthropic is being blocked, not only for Pentagon, but for any kind of company related to Pentagon. So extremely strong statements here. And then OpenAI just went in and said, we're going to accept that. So we were happy to take, the orders from Pentagon. And of course, Grok did the same, and XAI. And I think XAI got a lot of progress there. So they're going to use that. But still, it was a weird situation that happened. And I saw an interview with Dario, and he tried to explain this a bit. And I think no one is disagreeing that using AI for mass surveillance purposes, similar to China and the social scoring that they're having, is no one that wants to do, nor in US, nor in Europe, nor in I think anywhere, or except some parts of the world, perhaps. Still. And I think, autonomous weapons, what Dario said about that, it's simply that we don't trust AI to be good enough to make decision about, should we kill a human or not yet, right? We can see a point when AI becomes that good, but it's not there today. So we don't want our AI to be used for that. And and then they had this kind of, really, really strong statements. I have to look up, what they said here.
But I picked up on the whole thing from a slightly different angle. So it's also interesting how this is portrayed, or in different different people on LinkedIn, or people commenting, having different agendas for trying to tell the storytelling. because I've heard another angle when the Swedish community, so now we're not talking about the real discussion, but we're talking about how it's framed in Swedish media and in Swedish social media. So there the angle has been Anthropic, the whole background story of what you said now is completely gone. But now the conversation is all about Anthropic does not want Pentagon or the US government to have free access into surveillance people through using Anthropic. So this is a completely different angle and spin on the narrative than what you did, which is more about Anthropic are the only ones that everybody else is giving away your information to the government, and Anthropic is saying no to that. So this is slightly different spin on the same story.
News media can't be trusted anyway, right? Oh, sorry.
No, I don't know, but it's interesting because you went back to the American US, the original real story.
Yes.
That story almost didn't come up in my flow. It was more the story about they are the ones, the heroes, saying no to giving away your data.
I mean, some medias, are really misreporting this, and they don't really recognize that, Anthropic was the first one to be brought into Pentagon. They were the first one to do it. They wanted it to be used for defense purposes and for war purposes, and they still do. It's just that they are prohibiting these kind of two things, and I think, people are,
But don't you agree? These are two different stories that is actually from the same fundamental problem or issue happening, but it's completely two different narratives.
Yeah, and that's humans through
Yeah,
news
it's
reporting.
interesting. It's interesting.
But do we ever want AI to make a decision about who should die?
I hope not, right? Or what do you think?
Well, it's definitely not ready for it yet, but I'm sort of wondering, again, I mean, there's so many questions here, isn't there, about what kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah.
Would you like, if you have like a drone defense, drones are attacking your house, would you like to wait until a human says stop that drone, or do you want to have that autonomous defense in place?
So you're saying, but then that's stopping it killing someone.
Yes.
Well, AI stopping someone killing someone is a different thing.
But you agree on that, right? Because it's an easy decision to
I
say,
guess it's
right?
relatively, yes.
So then the next question would be, if you allow that to kill a drone, would it allow it to kill a human flown aircraft that is going to kill you autonomously?
So these are, if it's a human flown military aircraft.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a decision made by my government, not by me.
But still, you have autonomous defense here.
Yeah.
Right? Either case, it's a drone without a human. The other case, it's a plane with a human in it.
I would want someone who is far more qualified than I am to make that decision, and I do. I mean, this is part of why AI is really fascinating, because normally we elect governments and we allow them to make the decision, right? Yeah. We sort of
like they would know better.
They probably don't, but what I mean is we delegate that responsibility to government. That's why we have elections. That's why that's how we've decided to do it. So technically, there's still some kind of human in that loop anyway, even though it's autonomous, right? So that's my weasel wording.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it should be as well.
But there is another angle to this, and this is we can take it out of this very charged context. How do we have safety by design in an autonomous system when the wheels are spinning faster and faster and faster? And I had very good conversations around this, like when we say human in the loop, what does that mean when something is really autonomous? Because I can from a practical point of view, you have human in the loop in the design and in how you set the framing criteria and how you set this topic. To think that we will have human in the loop in the practical sense in something that is a millisecond war, that someone is going to press a button in the middle of the process.
You can just move it to a self-driving car kind of scenario, and you have a car now driven by an AI, and you have to either brake to avoid killing a pedestrian or a dog that is moving on the street. And you can't...
It's a trolley problem, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we have this, it's the same problem, right? And would you then choose? Do you require a human in that case to make that decision, or would you be willing to let the AI do it?
Do the best he can.
I mean, if it is an autonomous vehicle, there is no human in that loop, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Should
already
that be disallowed then?
but then you're saying autonomous vehicles should be disallowed.
Exactly.
I think I don't. To be honest,
Such interesting questions.
that's an interesting question. I mean, if you go to LA, for example, they already have autonomous
Of course,
vehicles, and you've got cars
China
now
as
that-
well. I mean,
yeah.
there's so many cities, and there's many thousands of autonomous cars around, right?
And you can literally read a book if you get in some of the cars overseas these days, right? It's only really Europe that doesn't have this, right?
I think Netherlands is getting close now to making the decision here. We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, it's tough decision, but at the end of the day, it's probably in small scenarios, and this is where we can have an interesting discussion about AGI, actually. So in that scenario, it's probably going to make a better decision or a more realistic, quicker, more safe decision than a human.
Yeah, for sure.
Than a human, right?
Yes.
Because a human's going to have a panic reaction, shall we say?
And can't deal with the amount of data and reason in the same way and whatnot. Yeah, of course.
No, but so is there something to be said about the fact that, okay, if we get AGI, do we really want AGI just roaming around doing anything, or do we want specialized AGI that is trained within a particular
What do you think?
scope? Well, actually, some of the work I was doing before I moved back to Sweden actually was looking at how we would use something along the lines of guilds. So the guilds were like, something that happened in the UK. You would be a master guild in carpentry, masonry, all this kind of stuff. So you were specialized in one particular area. So why can't we have sort of AI guilds that are sort of very deeply trained in one space, and then they are able to exchange data, talk and discuss amongst themselves.
For that guilds.
Yeah, say they can say, oh, look, there's data. I think I might have some incorrect data, or I've got something going wrong. Or check with a human as well. There's no reason why I can't ask a human to review. Do we actually just want AGI, as it is talked about today, which is effectively that it can do everything, right?
This line of thinking links to our guest last week, Magnus Hyttsten, many years at Google, who are really talking about the fundamental issue of how do we do evaluation, the way we set evaluation criteria to frame and box AI in. So he says all the conversations now is, we can do everything. But what we're talking about actually, in order to do this repetitively safe, and the more high stakes it is, we need to start boxing things in.
Yeah.
And the guild approach could be a way to, okay, we have AGI boxed into a guild, and now we can have eval criteria. And he was doing exactly this example. Now we can, it's like me human, I'm going to work. I can't be Henrik the surfer or Henrik the party guy at Vattenfall. I need to be boxed in as my job description is, and then I can teach them this. So the guild idea is a way to stepwise understand how we can go to AGI or narrow AGI or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, you can think about it as actually almost as an education process, in particular as AI, the process that AI uses to learn, right? In the same way that we educate humans, we educate them bachelor, master's, PhD, however we want to classify education in today's world. You could also think about the educational process. You could actually say, okay, this is an AI in this particular guild at it's PhD level, but this one's master's level.
But this makes total sense, because in a way, if you go to Karim and how we build, otherwise on how we build intelligence and learn recursive systems. So the AGI is like the fundamental pattern is here, but it's on a 5-year-old until we put it into a certain guild and we let it grow up and certify it here. Now you're a certified masonry. Yeah. Then we can, in theory, continue, and I'm going to use that AI, but now I'm going to give him these books or these frames, and now it can be a police or a carpenter or whatever. So I kind of resonate with that way of thinking about learning.
I think it moves actually to an interesting topic that we can continue.
Yes.
And I think I can misquote you. No, sorry, quote you properly. But did you have anything, Goran, that you would like to add, or is it for the new section?
I will be short because it's like we're running out of time. But to tie to everything that you have said, there is like a new pro-human AI declaration signed by many now AI, what is called scientists and companies, Richard Branson and whatnot, and etc., which is one of many, which is looking at keeping humans in charge, avoiding concentration of power, protecting the human experience, human agency, and liberty, and then responsibility and accountability of for AI companies, which is just another basically declaration saying like, okay, one of the major thing is like we should not develop artificial super intelligence before we have the guardrails set in place, which
Sounds
is
like a good idea.
yeah, my only observation to this, we have a number of those. You have one from OPSE, you have like United Nations and etc. To what do they come when it comes to actually putting those things in charge? Because right now the concentration of power, it is in those companies that is like we're discussing Pentagon, Anthropic, OpenAI, and etc. But they don't care about this right now because there is no penalty because they're playing with governments, and as long as that is the case, there is no actually urgency and incentive for them to think about the harm that they're doing, as long as they are protected under the supreme, let's say, ambition of a company or a country or something like that. So how can we actually make pro-human AI declaration when we have 5-6 companies that are tightly connected with governments and economic power? So,
Perhaps that's a great segue actually into you, Kath, as well. I mean, you've been an advisor for UN as well. What do you think about the UN potentially becoming a party in trying to regulate or ensure that we have pro-human use of AI? Could that, since we have these kind of companies that are, you know, bigger than most countries, perhaps we need some kind of like a UN to
There actually is a new panel that's just been announced. The UN AI panel. It's got some extremely interesting people in it, really exciting. My concern, I'm going to lose a lot of friends by saying this, but I think, you know, going back to my statement that the things set up for the 20th century aren't going to serve us in the 21st century. I think the United Nations was set up almost deliberately to have no teeth, if you look at the origins and the story behind it. So it's very, very difficult for the UN to effect change. Okay, there's some teeth in the Security Council, but we can see even now that's sort of not doing really brilliantly for the world, is it? Let's put it that way. So my question is, what does these kind of organizational structures look like? We don't need to look to the past in order to sort of try and I think we're trying to fit current problems into old solutions.
Yes,
right?
old patterns.
Old patterns, we need new ones.
We need to understand the patterns that are in line with another objective function.
Yeah.
I use the word example all the time. Oh, we have an organizational pattern that is for economies of scale or an efficiency in a slow-moving context when you can take an ERP system and a process and you run it for 10 years and then you do a change and then you do an innovation leap. This is division of labor. This is the kind of patterns Michael Porter came up with. What happens when you have a constantly moving productivity frontier and your core objective path is resilience and flexibility and continuous learning and adaptability. So the fundamental objective function of organization is something else. So here is very simple, right? You have a pattern that is efficiency focused, and now I want a pattern that is adaptability, flexibility, resilient focused. What is optimized for this cannot be the same.
Yeah, but going back to the question, where is really, you know, how is UN playing a part in this or not? What's the pros and cons?
Yeah, so I think the UN, they're very good at convening people, but honestly, I think more impact has been seen from some of the other platforms. So when you get business together, you know, at the WEF, they were able to change things because business is currently more powerful than a lot of the governments.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, I think the panel for the UN is desperately needed because, in my
Right.
experience, most of the governments, when I've spoken to different government entities, they desperately need help to understand AI. Actually, they desperately need help to understand any digital technology. And so having, extremely high quality computer scientists in the panel and able to have some of those conversations and hopefully educate some of the UN will be very good. But at the same time, the UN is being, the budgets have been slashed, right?
Yeah.
So,
but what else could we have?
this is what I think is interesting. I think some of the analysis that the world needs to do and sort of reflect on is in an era where we have data and capitalism sort of closely linked. What are the choke points? What are the bottlenecks or the places where we can actually genuinely affect change?
Yeah.
And how do we do that in the right way that gives people agency? So, there's a lot of these, like you're saying, like a lot of these declarations have come out. I think there's sort of a report every week to the point that
MOUs.
MOUs, reports, white papers, academic papers. I think, to be honest, I don't have the answer, but we need to start looking for new solutions.
Perhaps the next
Just
book
to add a little bit to this, and then I will shut up because it's not my point. To the point of Hendrik and you as well, I think that it's hard to make a pro-human AI declaration in a pocket. So let's say only for Europe or only for US and etc. And I think that if we are looking at those structures like United Nations and everything that was post Second World War was done for the benefit of everyone. That's why we have United Nations. All the nations are coming so they can decide on a global scale what actually can be done and how it's going to be done and etc. Which means that is the only way how we can introduce change globally. Because if Europe introduces change, but China and United States, they are basically, who cares about this? Let's run. At some point of time, Europe will say, like we are saying right now, oh shit, we fall behind. Therefore, put all these things on a side. No regulation, no sustainability, no things like that. Run, because otherwise we will be outdated. And in a world like that, when there is a competitiveness between regions and companies and countries and etc., I think that it's all of these declarations and even the European Act and everything else will not serve to any power because it's hard.
Because
We know now we go full circle, so I can tie up this because we need UN, but we need another form and shape that is relevant for the objective function what we're doing.
Yeah, basically. But also, I think, I've got some very strong opinions on Europe.
Let's go.
Yeah, because I really think, GDPR was a great concept, but the way it was executed was basically the biggest act of self-harm. Because they actually took the entire European Union out of the AI race. We have some of the best AI researchers in the world sitting in Europe, and they weren't able to do the research in the same way. Or indeed build companies in the same way.
We have done a lot of critique about this.
Yeah,
tell me the version 2.0 or 1.2 of GDPR has been done. Has somebody revised this after 8 years?
Well, there's GDPR 2.0, right? That came out almost immediately because they realized how bad the original one was.
They are trying to remove the cookies now. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
In the end.
But, and here coming back full circle, sorry,
of course.
is I think that if we, instead of, every time a new technology comes out, we get a new set of regulations from Europe. So we have cryptocurrency, we have some IoT stuff, we have some, blah, 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 GDPR, et cetera, DSA, the platform. Instead of trying to regulate every single new technology that comes out, if they instead start thinking about the fact there's a data economy emerging and regulate for that horizontally, a lot less regulation. You can still...
What do you mean horizontally? That was interesting.
Basically, okay, so as you've noticed, I have a theory. We're moving into a data economy. So I think instead of regulating each, GDPR and the EU AI Act actually have a lot of overlap if you think about...
Complete overlap.
Yeah.
It is a mess in here now.
And what they're doing is actually creating a lot of cost, a lot of expense, and a lot of complexity for companies to actually respond to. And actually show compliance with. If instead they take a step back and think sort of sensibly about actually what is happening is we're having this new layer of our economy that's called data. It's having a lot of impacts across different aspects of our society and our, regulatory environment. And we're going to regulate for data, not for AI, not for cryptocurrencies, not for platforms. Because platform, the DSA, is also just regulating data, right? To think about it more broadly and more deeply. And I think there are economic models that they can use to do that.
Actually, this if you do it like Kathy is saying, and you look at a data economy, you can on a macro level get a coherence with something that actually is already happening when you get to the engineering level of building products.
Yes.
Because the problem right now is that as long as I listen to the lawyers, I have 50 different regulations and some are overlapping and some are so I need an AI even to understand what applies to me.
I built one, by the way, if you need it.
Yeah. But it all comes to the one singular product owners who has built this AI system, either if it's for internal use or for product use, consumer use, where he needs to go 360 degrees around all the different regulations, i.e. the data economy of this singular microeconomic product. So if you take a product, and I said this to anyone who wants to listen, you need to solve it from the engineering perspective of building products. And what you did now, you simply took the financial value side of the product and did the data economy. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, but done so that hopefully that policy makers understand it.
But it's like, because if I say you need to take an engineering perspective on policy, they don't get me. But if you say we need to take an end-to-end economic value perspective, product,
It's like what they've done with the digital technologies is it's equivalent to saying I want to I need to regulate an euro, and then I need to regulate the 200 crown note and the 500, and I need to regulate them separately, right? It makes no sense. That's just my humble opinion, of course, but
perhaps. You mentioned you're thinking about the next book as well, right? So.
Yes, my next input to AI.
I think AI sustainability perhaps could be a good title here.
It could be, yeah. I think it could be. We'll see. We'll see what the publishers say.
Cool. If we try to move into another topic here a bit, and the time has been flying away a bit, so I'm going to cut some of the discussions here. But okay, so if we think about someone driving a company right now, and you have a book speaking about digital sustainability here, and we wanted to make it a bit more concrete, not just a theoretical framework. We really want it to be some practical kind of steps, like companies and CEOs can take, right, to make this happen. How can we start to speak about this in a practical sense so that CEOs and companies can start making use of it?
Yeah, I think one of the most obvious things is that you need to know what you have. I think quite often when we talk to organizations, they think they know what they have, but they really don't. So one of the first things is to really map what I would call the ecology almost or map your digital systems. But not just sort of from a very sort of box perspective, but also looking at how they are connected. What are the dependencies? Because quite often you can find small dependencies there that create brittleness, shall I say, where resilience will fail, basically, at those brittle points. Then I think you need to think about actually reframing value. Maybe not to the sort of very deep sort of what is the value of data sort of perspective, but look more strategically at how you can think about using digital technologies across the entire company. And if you have the mapping, then you can do that. But also looking towards adjacent industries is also, I think, very useful in order to do some of these things. And to also think about what are the critical points of value within your company that need to be protected if resilience needs framing. And then,
Okay, so understanding how the business works, understanding a bit what the digital systems that you do have are, a bit, I guess, about their capabilities in some sense. and then trying to potentially reframe the value from a more sustainable point of view.
Yeah, so the triple bottom line is where,
Right.
you know, we went into that in quite a bit of detail already. So what does it take? You have to sort of map your, what I call an ecology, but then also think about what is your broader ecosystem, not just the shareholders. You have to think about the communities, the employees, and other types, you know, it could be your partners, it could be even competitors sometimes in some types of industry, right? Where there's a lot of competitive co-creation. There may be a need to work together. But then also think about how you're going to govern that system in a different way. So are there ways where you can use a more, shall we say, decentralized or decoupled organizational structure? Can you reorganize in very simple terms to create more resilience in your organizational structures?
Now you have two parts here, because as soon as you start going to other definition of value, and we want to govern that value, we need to now figure out the new leading indicators. We understand how we have measured EBIT and financial metrics. What is it that we are now are the leading indicators that make sense in the other dimensions? That becomes a critical one.
Yep. And it becomes probably, it also actually enables you to delegate some of those indicators out to the boundaries of the firm, right? Rather than having everything centralized, the measurement sort of making sure that different parts of the organization have greater agency and control, are able to take decisions on the edge to enable greater resilience.
And this now becomes where we can sort of talk about this topic all the way from architectural system engineering, team topologies in software systems, all the way down to this. So what we are talking about is federate. Where do we decouple? How do we build more tighter, efficient teams with agency that has a very much clear purpose, and how they then decomposes and modularizes into different parts. So you're literally doing something that is not a very hard, locked, brittle process chain, but more modular, composable pieces.
I mean, if it makes it a bit simpler for an AI audience, maybe you can really think about this. We're going to see a complete redefinition thanks to agentic AI or whatever agentic AI becomes, where we're not going to see companies or organizations sort of structured in the same way. You're going to see probably one person running a team of agents and a couple of people. And these are going to be connecting and coordinating with each other in what I think are completely different ways. So I think, in order to create resilience, if you have, you can think about different ways to organize, to decompose, and actually you can think about the company then in a completely different way. So what does the company actually do, which is that bit that holds it all together on the top? Sorry, that's you look skeptical. Go on, go for it.
No, it's a different side story, because we have done research in this topic within our organization, looking at this from the core fundamental patterns, and looked at this we from what we refer to as agent-based organization. But it has, before we got agentic from the AI community, it's about our organizing for agency. And we are talking about then a distributed agentic intelligence reform. So how we understand agency is a fundamental view of how to understand intelligence as a hive mind. So this is such a rabbit hole, but I fundamentally agree on your principal view of decomposition. What we have worked on are the principal design patterns and principles, how to think in order to carve out what is a good decomposition heuristic.
Yeah, and to try and work out exactly where, what is the largest sort of grouping that you should have in a team, for example, or a group of agents. Where does it actually get too big? Have you looked at any of those kind of things, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a fractal pattern. And ultimately, as a fractal pattern, it's very simple to understand what are the key design principles around that. And then, I agree with, So we have that. Cool. So our PhD, Mikael Klingvall, is he's the guy who is sort of the brain on thinking. So he's a data scientist at work, but we are looking at those kind of principles actually fractally the way we have thought about this to build complex adaptive systems and AI and all that actually teaches us on how we need to think about the future enterprise.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you on that, because I think, we've seen since probably about the 1980s, we've seen a hollowing out of corporate structures, right? What we call the hollowing out process. And actually, if you think about what a company really is and what it acts
Complex
as,
adaptive system.
and it's also really just an aggregation of back to money, capital, human resources, and some resources, right? Some physical resources, and those can be redistributed and delivered in a very, very different way.
So Mikael Klingvall is more or less world leader, in my opinion, on understanding this from an organizational point of view. He's an organizational sociologist, data scientist.
Very cool.
So he has a very, very interesting angle into this.
Do you have a podcast of him? I want to watch that.
Yeah, he was actually here for many years ago, but we were a bit drunk that episode. It wasn't a good episode because we were actually drunk.
It was an awesome episode.
Sorry, I'm drinking water.
No worries. But continuing perhaps a bit on what you recently said, which is that, we are going to reorganize differently. We're going to have AI agents that is going to be a team that most humans have and play with. How do you see the human role evolving then, as we are going to have more and more AI agents as co-workers or whatever we call them in the future? What do you think the role of the humans will be?
Well, I think we'll move into an interim period like we were talking about before, where you end up being system coordinators, right? So going back to sort of tech, you start in coding, then you used to work your way up into sort of system architecture and then into sort of, more end-to-end system architecture.
Yeah.
I think we'll see that the issue will be you need to move straight from university now into sort of end-to-end system architecture, right? Yeah. So that puts a lot of problems for the education system. Actually, I think we need to completely redefine how we educate and how we train people. But I think over time, hopefully, what happens is we have a lot of agents that are off doing work for us, maybe. Making money off our assets for us. It would be lovely to have a car, if you're going to have an autonomous vehicle, it'd be wonderful to have, you might own the car and rent it out through...
right, but you're not using it yourself.
Yeah, an agent could theoretically drive it and could put money into your bank account, take it out for gas,
Do you use agents yourself in any way today?
Mainly to play around with them to see what they can do, actually, yeah. So I'm a bit too scared of. I've done too much security research previously to use OpenClaw.
Right.
I like trying it, but then I keep going. Oh, there's no way I'd put this live.
Just put in all your passwords.
Take
Give
everything.
access to all your files. No, whatever could go wrong there.
But Katja, I think
what I'd love to have actually is an agent that can go through my laptop and organize it for me. That I might like. I haven't got around to building it yet.
OpenClaw can probably do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but OpenClaw can do that, I think, even better.
Yeah, but you said something that I think is quite interesting, that there's the interim, and then is when we can move up an abstraction layer. So we had this conversation before. So it would be nice when we feel so confident in this level, so we can live on a different abstraction level, sending them out and do work, blah, blah, blah. But the system coordinator role here, the interim here is a little bit like we, in some ways, moving up the abstraction level, but we are nowhere near to be able to let go of being part of or monitoring. So that's the problem. We're going to live on the same abstraction level as the AIs and try to move up. Is that what we mean with the interim? We can't really let go. That would be stupid to let go too fast.
But we do let go a lot in coding, for example. It's really the window into the future in many aspects.
Okay,
So we're not really looking at the code. Some people, I still do, by the way, because I have a hard time to let go. But a lot of people do not. And
are they mad, or are they? Are we there? Are we there now, or are they mad?
Said mad or
mad? Yeah. Because I have the conversation on LinkedIn is like, "Are you mad that you're not looking at the code?" And then we say, of course we can do it now.
I think that's a bit arrogant, isn't it, to have a go at people who are not looking at the code. I think it's also a great democratizer.
It is.
If you think about it, yeah.
No, I wasn't having a go. I was more like, are we there?
It is the conversation.
Are we there or not? And I think we are there. But
Yeah, and if you, it's kind of slightly irritating to have spent a lot of my life learning how to do good code, and then
I think it's still valuable to do that. I still think universities should still learn people to code, but perhaps on a different way. But still, you need to understand the basics.
yeah,
You need to understand what the CPU is still, even though you don't know how to make one.
absolutely. And it's one step towards Star Trek. We have to accept,
But there's so many good sayings here. Like, you know what? We put a coder put all his identity into. I'm so good at coding. Finally, we can let go of that thing and then talk about what a real real engineering and software engineering is all about, which is many more facets than just coding. So finally, we don't need to have that as our crutch. Someone said it quite well. You know what I'm saying? To build good systems, to build a system with product market fit, that was always the job.
Yeah, and it enables us to sort of use our higher order powers of thinking, right? To sort of think, okay, what do we want this system to actually do, as opposed to sitting there trying to debug a little tiny error.
So if we really look at our role as engineering from 360 degree around building great products with product market fit, coding is then this piece of my identity. I'm happy to leave that, because these are the real questions. Someone said this really well, and I completely ate it up. I think it's true. What do you think? I mean, like, engineering is so much more than coding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's never just been about writing lines of code.
Exactly.
It's been much more about the system thinking here and what it really should do.
I think most people are worried about AI mainly because it shows us what, these traditional sort of, again, 20th century jobs are mainly, what was that book, bullshit jobs?
Yeah,
exactly. Most of what we do is actually sort of admin or repackaging someone else's email to give it to someone else.
But this is functional stupidity that should be taken away anyway.
Yeah.
That actually, we talk about, we have so much more higher productivity frontier because of AI, and then I'm a little bit like provocative. Is AI showing us transparently functional stupidity that we're cleaning up? Or is it, so what is the efficiency of productivity gains that some of these fucking bullshit ways of working and stupid things becomes, people don't have agency, teams are not smartly organized. Oh, with agents, we need to figure that out now. No shit, Einstein, you should have done it 10 years ago with your team of people.
Yeah.
I think there is so much good by thinking about systems and agents that actually just shows, did we really give teams agency before in the right way? Maybe now's the time to do it.
Maybe don't say that too loud. That'll stop everyone using AI.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's a healthy way of looking at agency.
I mean, the amount of the moment I was convinced to use AI actually was when you do your marking for students. So I did a lot of teaching before, and you'd write the sort of comments, and then I'd be looking at it going, oh, well, that's a little bit harsh. I need to go back and be not that I wanted to be harsh to them, like I'd given them a good mark, but I wanted to. So I just asked the AI, take this and smooth the language to make it nicer. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful, thank you. That's that cut probably about 12 hours from marking. Yeah. Some days it took, to cut 2 weeks, depending on the students.
Yeah. I think it will be amazing when AI can move, not just in coding, but in any kind of job and task like that, like teaching and grading exams or whatever. It will be super fun. I think we should move perhaps even more philosophical here.
Okay.
And if we, there is this metric called METR. It's basically trying to measure for tasks, how long time does it take for a human to do a certain task? And then try to see what can AI do today, and then measure that progress over time. And we were like half a year ago, I think, around like 4-hour tasks that AI can do to 50% success rate. And apparently that doubles every 4 months or something. I think we're up to like 14 hours of work that an AI can do today. That takes like 14 hours for a human to do. So that will continue to improve a lot. So soon we will have like AIs that can do weeks of work as a human would take it, but it can do that successfully. If we believe this will continue, then of course we will reach AGI at some point. That jobs that Henrik does or that I do can be much better done with an AI. And if that happens, for one, do you think that will happen? When do you think potentially we will have an AGI system that actually do improve? As Sam Altman has a nice definition here, saying AGI will happen when an AI can do what an average level human coworker can do, and you can properly replace him.
Mm-hmm. When do I think that will happen?
Yeah.
6 months.
Really?
I actually, I don't know. 6 months to a year. I think advances are being made now. However, at the same time, I also have a lot of belief in these new world models. I'm really excited to see what happens with those. The reason for that is I think when we talk about AGI, effectively what we're looking at is basically we're being challenged as humans, because before AGI and all of this wonderful stuff that could write pages and pages and pages, we kind of thought we were the only intelligence in the world that could have language. If you think about that, it's a massive level of arrogance that humans have had about intelligence, what intelligence is, and how brilliant we were. We were the supreme sort of animal on the planet Earth. I think those are going to continue. And are they going to be able to effectively replace a co-worker who is sitting in a very boring task-oriented job, sort of bit of writing? Yeah, probably quite soon.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. What I'm super excited about, however, is what would happen when we see what other types of intelligence can emerge from these sort of world models, physical models, which are much more about understanding, learning from the world around us,
Yes.
different types of intelligence. And that, to me, I think is almost more exciting.
Okay.
Because imagine if you get introduced to a new type of intelligence that we haven't seen before, that really challenges our
I think
understanding of being human.
It's fun also to see that, because you can also, imagine that humans are really, really bad at some things, right? And if you take that knowledge management, we are horrible in just reading a book and trying to do recall on that book. But AI can do that insanely much better than any human. But then I think also we underestimate sometimes what humans can do and overestimate what AI can do. I'm not as positive or optimistic as you in like 1 year or 6 months. I think there are a lot of things that actually humans do that we do not appreciate. So I wouldn't say 6 months.
By 2029, you'll be
yes.
sticking to Kurzweil's number the whole time.
4
for
years,
5
perhaps.
years.
4 years, okay, yeah. I
knows?
think.
It's also a big difference between the digital world and the physical world.
What
as you said.
co-worker are you replacing?
Henry.
Any.
Wow.
But the core argument here is a little
But
bit
there is
like...
no such thing as any co-worker, right? There is a co-worker who might be, and that's why, a co-worker, for example, who might book all my meetings, book all my travel, schedule things, that I think can be done probably 6 months. Probably can.
But-
OpenClaw could probably do it now.
But we are
Maybe not.
But there's
Maybe
an
not, yeah.
interesting nuance here that I think, if you look at this, go back to Sam Altman's definition of AGI, we have an AI that can be taught to do any job a normal person can do from A to Z. I think the logical way of thinking about that is that you have the fundamental intelligence here, and then you need to start in one corner with one guild, and then you can replace this coworker, and then this coworker, and then this coworker, and then this coworker, and then you can move across that space digitally, like office work, and then you can think about doing that in the physical world, So AGI on so many different levels. But if we just take the office work, the white collar work, I think it can be understood that the AI is smart enough now, but it still has a learning curve, guild by guild by
But
guild.
we still haven't seen replacement. I must
No,
admit.
not yet.
No,
The
we
only
don't.
thing we're seeing is really human being empowered, meaning that a single human can do more, meaning
Yeah.
we can potentially not have as many humans. But I would argue, and please disagree with me, that full replacement hasn't really happened.
No, we
yet.
are on task level. We are not on fundamental
Job level.
job level.
No.
We are
No, I
not.
think-
We're not.
And it depends what you mean by a job as well, right?
Yes, of course.
So these are definitional, but
Journalists probably could be replaced. Just messing
apparently,
with you.
according to News Corp, they apparently have been. So can book authors, by the way.
No, I'm kidding there. So,
But actually, I think, isn't it a bit of a weird metric? like, think about it. Okay, so replacement. Okay, that's one thing. What about the invention of a completely new type of coworker? You know, something.
No, but I
Aren't
agree with you
aren't we
here.
being a
Well,
bit
they
small?
are, maybe.
Yeah,
Agents are that, right? In some way.
a bit.
But
Yeah, but again, they're task oriented, aren't they? Sort of
But I loved your comment here, because when we go into this replacement rhetoric, we are already here putting old models on a new problem.
Yeah.
Because we all know that jobs has been reshifted or reworked and new roles emerged, and we call them different things. So we know by a fact that we cannot define the job approach of this 21st century. So that becomes then tricky, because we are trying now to box it in into definition of replacing jobs to be done, when in fact this is evolving, it's changing.
There's a fantastic museum that you guys need to go and have a look at. It's called the Museum of Unknown Artifacts.
Ooh, that's
right?
funny.
And what I use this a lot as an example of what I think AI is going to do for us. So there's I think it's in Nottingham, I think, in the UK. And what they have illustrated is that there is actually there's all of these implements, and they don't know what they were used for. They're tools that were used probably pre-Victorian era, and they have absolutely no clue. They've got lovely labels that say, "We think this has something to do with farming."
So this is a cool tool, and it's clearly a utility, but we cannot figure out what it was used for.
Exactly.
So
And there
fun.
was obviously some human there working with that tool, probably an expert in it. And suddenly, it sort of has been replaced. And hundreds of years later, we have no idea what that even is. I think that's where we're going to end up. We're going to see something, we're going to be, people are going to look back at us and go, look at these idiots using this implement. What is this?
Imagine in 10 years, people are going to look back at us and think, oh, Jesus Christ, imagine how they worked in that time.
I think they're already doing that, aren't they?
But that was a good framing, Kathy. I like that.
Okay, so final question here. So imagine we will come at some point, and the exponential progress in technological AI progress will continue, and we will see some uptake and some adoption as well, potentially. Then there will be a point where we'll have AGI and ASI potentially as well, and it could end up in two extremes here. You can think about one extreme being dystopian kind of Matrix and the Terminator and machines trying to kill us all as humans. Or it could be the other extreme, which is the utopian version, where we have the world of abundance. We have AI that's cured cancer, and it's fixed the energy crisis and made fusion energy work and fixed so many things. And basically have the price of goods and services going towards zero. A Star Trek world in some way, perhaps. Where do you think we will potentially end up here on that spectrum?
Well, I mean, I hope for Star Trek.
Right.
I've got to. I think we end up a little bit more towards Star Trek, but we've got a long way to go. And if you look at any of showing my supreme geekness now, but if you look at any of the canon of Star Trek, or you can see that they always talk about history, Earth history going through some kind of massive turmoil, and then they're moving through that in order to get into
Surviving though.
It's still surviving. Yeah. So how do we, I think it gives us some inspiration, but like all things, science fiction, it's always just a concept, an idea. But the thing is, like, how do we move as a society? And I think we need genuinely to have some very open and honest conversations and try and work out how to have these across society of the type of world we want to live in. How do we help people transition as well? Because it's super exciting to talk about, okay, someday someone's not going to know what this is, or, a pen is, or all of the tools we use today are going to be completely unknown. But that does mean that there's going to be a lot of people going through a lot of turmoil. So how do we help? How do we help that transition? I think that's a key. That's something the UN should be working on.
To come into a world of sustainable AI, perhaps.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that would be good. I
think you phrased it well. I mean, I've been saying that also. I think I'm more afraid today for people abusing AI than I will be at the point in time where we'll have AI that can supervise at least other AIs.
Yeah.
And then I feel a bit more secure. But I'm really scared actually today when it's so easy to abuse AI.
Yeah, and sort of understanding how to put AI into some guardrails would be very,
Especially
very
in the
interesting.
geological kind of or geopolitical situation we have today, then it becomes a bit scary, I think.
Yeah, and I guess we could use some of the archetypes, going back to the beginning of the conversation, some of the archetypes that are used, or design patterns used in telecommunications originally,
Right. Oh, yeah. Good
could be
point.
very useful to provide some of those guardrails.
I think there are. I even go back to the point where we had talking about the core pattern of intelligence. I mean, like a startup in Sweden that is trying to crack the idea of intelligence, right? And who has in my opinion, trying to understand what are the first principles of intelligence, what are the feature set of intelligence. And here we are now talking about fundamental patterns. And I think these are fractal patterns that goes into the design thinking of how we build intelligence, that goes into how do we build organization and teams and stuff like that. So I think there are some there is beauty in that idea. And I think I think there's things that we can figure out that is reusable.
And is there something also to be said about, we talk about intelligence, but are we actually really talking about cognition? The ability to cognate. Sorry, now I'm getting declining in English. But if you think about it, a lot of the things that we see around us that have what we would classify as intelligence have a cognitive capacity, right? And there's a lot of really fantastic work that's been done in that space. There's a great book, Bacteria to AI, by Catherine Hales, that's worth reading.
Yeah, this is so. We need. Okay,
Sorry.
Now it's time for AI after work.
Exactly.
So this is the cliffhanger where we bye.
Yeah, we leave all the listeners behind now. And
now you guys see why we want to have AI after work. What a great question.
Yeah, so looking forward to digging deeper into that question very, very soon. But thank you so much, Catherine Mulligan, for coming here to the AI at Work podcast.
No, thank you very much. This was the sort of conversation I moved back to Sweden for, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
guys. Yeah.
Thanks. Take care.